Welcome to Office Hours. I am Steve Drost. With me, as always, Will Kaplan. Of course, Will and I are both from the Quivr team. And what is Quivr? Simple. We are the CRM built by financial advisors for financial advisors. And our objective is simple. How can we help you run your business at peak efficiency? And now each episode of Office Hours, we talk about a couple of cool things that came directly from our users who are trying to do just that. Make their lives just a little bit easier. Will, there's a common theme in Quivr where it's hard to build what we call a one-to-many software that is perfect for everybody. Now, what we mean by that is it is a single version of a piece of software meant to be used by many different people and organizations. And of course, the challenge there is, while I think most financial planning practices have a lot of similarities, there's always that 10, 20, 30% that do things differently. So the challenge with Quivr then is how can we make sure that we are rolling out features that are applicable to everybody, but at the same time, we leave that window open on the back end so that our end users are able to tweak and finagle and create the things that they need to finish that, right? Not just be 70% good, but get closer to that 95 or 100%, right?
And Steve, I mean, you're absolutely right about this. It's kind of walking that fine line between giving someone the tool that they need in that particular minute, or giving them like a 3D printer where they can build the tool that they need that is exactly spec'd for their, for their practice, for what they're trying to do. And I'll say this because I think this is true for both of us. Like, that's what drove us to Salesforce in the first place. That's why Quivr lives on Salesforce, is because it gives you the ability to, like, we're going to get you this amazing bootstrap of Quivr as it comes off the shelf. And then you can just keep making it better and keep making it better and keep making it better and adding these little tweaks and customizations along the way that supercharge it, that just absolutely transform it.
And one of those things that we've done is given our users a feature called projects. Projects initially, to be very honest with you, the initial idea behind projects was to help our users handle those, what I call non-linear items that they walk through with clients. For example, helping a client get an estate plan. You can build a beautiful workflow. I mean, that workflow will be awesome for the first client that you use it on, and then the next client's process will be completely different. So how do you then manage this planning topic that you're walking through with a client that is going to be different every single time? But what you found in office hours is people are, yes, using projects for planning topics like estate planning, like helping a client obtain a life insurance policy. You have it, but they're also using them for very, very different and maybe more advanced things than I ever would have imagined.
I think, the metaphor that I often use for projects is, and I'll date myself here. When I got started in the industry, we had a file room, and you'd walk into the file room and you'd open up, one of these massive files, and there'd be all these hanging folders. And the hanging folders represent the client households. It was everything about one particular client. And then you'd open that up, and if you were lucky, the person who was in there before you had organized it, and they had like estate planning in like a manila folder, tax planning in a manila folder, and you could just grab the one you needed and off you go. And, it's all kind of organized. To me, that's projects. That's this idea of like, I need a wrapper because there's going to be maybe a couple workflows and maybe a couple emails and maybe some data that I want. And we have this at a really high level. If you look at like the ones that come, again, the ones that we provide, we've got a mortgage in there, mortgage project. And basically, it has information about the property and it has information about what the mortgage might look like in terms of rate and things like that. And then you go look at the estate planning one, it's totally different, right? Because you need different information about that stuff. And what we've been seeing now with some of these users is they've taken this concept and they've run with it. And it's like turning into really cool stuff in their practice. And so the one I kind of want to talk about, I think we've covered tax prep in a different call before. We have a handful of users that use projects to run their tax prep inside of their firms for, that's a feature or a service that they offer. But the one I want to talk about today is it's a user who is doing Surge like yourself, and she's doing financial planning reviews as part of the Surge process. So one of the Surge meetings is like an annual review of the financial plan. And so she's like, in the past, it's been this huge pain in the butt because there's data everywhere. And like, there's no clear, what have I updated and what haven't I updated? And I want to hand some of that off to a paraplanner. And so what she did is she basically took a project and turned it into all of the stuff I need to do when I'm going to go update a financial plan. And so like there's sections about, in her case, e-money. And here's a page in e-money, and here's the data that I put into that section. And here's all my income from the current year that I'm going to put into e-money. for that particular household. And like it kind of gathers up a bunch of data. So there's like, I'm going to do something I try very hard not to do, use a Salesforce term, a related list, but like just a bunch of records, gathers up like, here's the account information, like the asset and liability records into a related list. It's on that page. And so she goes to like this one page. It's got all of this data that she needs. And then in the same way that we've built a bunch of ours, there's project management related stuff at a very high level. And I think it's important to like, you and I have this conversation often. And I think we're in a pretty similar spot where kind of have to choose, where do I transition the project management into an actual workflow? And that's kind of tricky. Like you kind of have to feel that out a little bit, I think, each time. I think we've got some really good kind of best practices about some of that stuff. But like, it's also one of these things where projects can, you can attach workflows to projects. So like being able to have something like, here's my instruction set. Here's my operating, my standard operating procedures that tell me what to do. And then I've got all the data on that project record. It was ambitious. Like, it was a big project that she took on to create this and kind of customize it for her firm. But she's super excited about it because like she's looking forward to this surge and being like, this might be the most organized surge I think we've ever had.
Well, and I mean, what you just described, and specifically how you described it, I feel like almost every feature within Quivr came to be from a similar mindset of, I have a specific set of data or sets of data that I want in front of me at a very specific time. I mean, the homepage is like that. Show me everything I need to do today. Show me everything my team is working on. The meeting module is the same. Show me everything pertaining to this client over the last 6 months and going forward. The onboarding module is the same. Show me every single thing I need to onboard a client. All she did, and I love this, not to diminish the project, but from like a conceptual perspective, it's actually quite simple and logical to me. What pieces of information do I need to make sure that this client's financial plan is up to date? And if it's one of those key pieces of information, I want it on a singular screen. And the beautiful thing about Quivr is because it has houses and, a place for all of this financial planning data, a lot of this is going to be automatically populated, right? Once Holistic kicks your tax return into Quivr, well, you can then transpose that data onto this project. Once you get the estate plan entered, you can then transpose it onto this page, right? So it's not like you're doing a ton of work maintaining this data. Now, I'm sure some of it, maybe e-money might be more manual, but I bet 75 to 80% of this data is simply just being shown to her. Then she can decide if she has to action, if it's actionable or not.
And that brings up another really good topic. I was an eMoney user. I am a huge eMoney fan. One of my biggest frustrations with eMoney was, as I would go and update a plan, I didn't want to create a new plan. I wanted to kind of use the old plan because it was easier, right? It didn't take me as much setup. It didn't take me, like, there's not as much overhead associated with just kind of saying like, okay, I'm going to move this plan forward 1 year, right? But the problem was stuff would change. Income would change, account values might change, contribution rates might change, like all that data is getting adjusted. And so once I take income and I drop that income number into eMoney, the old value, wherever it came from, is gone, right? You lose it. You don't have it's probably in my notes, or it's on a W-2 form, or like client gave it to me in a meeting and I just updated it, so it's buried somewhere in my stuff. It's not easy for me to find. And what I love about Quivr is this, like, we're so focused on structured data. We've got a home for all of this stuff. And so then it's just surfacing the right data into that page. And then when you go look at last year's, it's going to surface last year's data. And so like you're seeing what you need when you need it. And it's this concept of like, give me, like, to your point, give me all the data that I need to work on a particular bit of work. And then the instruction kit is the workflow that tells me like, okay, go reference this field and put it over here. And I do think that, like, eMoney is still going to be a manual process. Like, we're still kind of stuck with that. I think for most of the planning tools, that seems to be kind of where we are with those right now. But not having to hunt around, not having to go figure out where is this data and like put it here. And especially from like a training standpoint of, this box goes over here, this box goes over here, turn the page, this box goes over here, this box goes over. Like, it makes like implementing a paraplanner or, handing this off to an admin feasible, where it's been really hard to do that in the past. And it's just because it's well organized, it's well structured, and there's instructions for what to do with it in the form of a workflow that, like, they marry together really well. It's the same way that we handle RMDs, same way we handle QCDs, same way we handle Roth conversions. Like, give me a record that holds everything and then give me the instructions of what to do with that data. And it's just kind of expanding upon that idea into something that's normally a really big, like it's a big deal. It's not easy to update a financial plan, but having all that data in one place, I think really does, like there is something kind of magical about that.
I think that's really cool. And I know the user you're referring to, and they've been on the system for, I don't know, 2 years now, maybe, and a year and a half, somewhere in that range,
They've
maybe.
kind of, yeah, I mean, they're following the pattern of a lot of our users where people use
Yeah,
it for a while and then they start to learn how it works. And then they kind of like, they hit
yeah.
that second hockey stick of efficiency
Mm-hmm.
where it's
Yep.
like, oh, I could use
Yeah.
this someplace else.
Yeah, and the skills that she's utilizing to build this out, she's using it in all of these different places too, which is really cool. She's got to learn the same 3 or 4 things and just repurpose those skills, which is really cool. I think this is a great example. Will, do you have anything else to add on this?
I think the only other thing that I was going to mention is like, it is this leveling up concept where like now that she understands how to build this project, the next time she comes into another one, she's gonna be like, oh, this is the same thing. I just need to like change this page, do this little, customization. And that's to me what is really so cool about Quivr is that it grows with you and it can support you as you're leveling up. And you just you keep getting more and more efficient the more you use it, the more you learn.
No, I agree. I agree. That's really cool. I love hearing the stories like this when we can see users really take things to the next level. But that's a wrap. Good stuff as always. If you are a Quivr user and maybe you're kind of in that second wave, ready to get that second hockey stick, remember office hours every Wednesdays are not just for, more maybe basic blocking and tackling questions. They are here for more philosophical, how would you handle this question? So don't be afraid to come to office hours and ask us. This is the nerdy stuff that Will and I genuinely enjoy. If you're not a Quivr user, that's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody is perfect, but remember, it's not too late. Come schedule a demo. Come hang out with me. Come hang out with Will and see what Quivr can do for you and for your practice.